The end of the school year can mean more teen drivers on the road. How to lessen the risks. Welcome back to Techstination. I'm Fred Fishkin. Joining us from State Farm is Director of Consumer and Technology Insights, John Way. Hi, John.
Hey, good morning, Fred.
Great to see you once again. And you've got some important information for parents and young people. And this summer is being, and I guess all summers are being labeled the 100 deadliest days. Tell us about it.
That's exactly right, Fred. And as a father of teenagers who are really excited to be done with school and the husband of a school educator, everybody's excited about this time of year. But there's also a dark reality about this time of year, which it is exactly as you said, the 100 deadliest days of the year on the roadway. So the period between Memorial Day and Labor Day, we see a real spike in fatal car crashes. And according to the CDC, whereas car crashes are already the leading cause of death for American teens during these 100 deadliest days, teens are 20% more likely to be involved in a fatal crash than they are at any point during the rest of the year, Fred. Just think about that, right? We already know that our teens are pretty risky drivers. That risk goes up by 20% in this time box between Memorial Day and Labor Day when everybody's out of school. So it makes it that much more important for us as parents, for us as a support network to help our kids understand what those risks are. Because, last point here, it really is a perfect storm, Fred, right? School's out, folks have more time on their hands. There's a little bit more unsupervised driving. We know that our teens don't do a great job of processing risk or dangerous situations. That's what comes with age and wisdom. And so they're a little bit more susceptible to some of the risky behaviors. We also know that summertime, nighttime driving is particularly risky, Fred. The fatal crash rate at night for teens is 3 times as high for that as adult drivers. Think about that. And another couple of scary stats. Almost 45% of all crash deaths among teenagers occur between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m., excuse me, so nighttime driving. And almost half, a full 50%, occur on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So night times and weekends for our teens are particularly susceptible times. And then one more stat for you, because this one genuinely blew my mind. I thought we were further along than this. Our teens and young adults still aren't wearing seatbelts often enough. A recent survey shows that among teen drivers and passengers killed in car crashes in 2020, 56% of them were not wearing a seatbelt at the time of the crash. And then 43% of high school students surveyed did not always wear a seatbelt when riding in a car driven by somebody else. 43%, Fred. And for as much as we've talked about seatbelt safety and the importance of that, I think it should be alarming and a call to action for all of us as parents or citizens to recognize we need to do a better job of articulating the importance of that very simple act of putting on your safety belt.
That sounds crazy that the numbers are that high.
I
What
was
are
very surprised.
some of the other factors here, John? We've talked about this issue before, and I'm sure it's a big factor here, distractions.
Distractions are a leading driver of these fatalities and these catastrophic accidents, no doubt about that, Fred. And as we think about distractions, cell phones in particular are the most challenging, not just for our teenagers, where it is by far their greatest challenge, but for all of us. I mean, as adults, we are so attached to our cell phones and the things that it provides us that it can be really, really difficult to detach from that when we're behind the wheel. What's really interesting, Fred, and a little bit of an emerging data point here, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety has started to show that drivers are more likely to use their phones while speeding. Back in the day, there was this hypothesis, and then kind of backed by research, that most folks were using phones as they were at a stoplight or during slower driving. That is no longer the case. We as human beings are so digitally native and are so used to using our phones all of the time that even as we're speeding down the highway now, we feel like we're safe enough to be able to use that. And we just know that is definitively not the case. And one of our own internal studies at State Farm found that when drivers thought about themselves being on a 3 hour interstate trip, like a whole lot of us will be this summer, about 1 in 5 expected to be bored, and 1 in 5 said they'd start interacting with their phone. So a full 20% of us, Fred, admit readily to the perception of boredom and the fact that we're probably going to start playing with our phones when we're on the highway. So again, a call to action for not just our teenage drivers who we should care deeply about, but for all of us, for all of us to pay more attention to how and where we're using our cell phones.
And I think that leads into the kind of messaging that parents can use, or what steps they can take that can be effective in getting teens to be safer. And I guess one of them would be setting a good example.
Yeah, it's spot on, Fred. And I'll tell you, man, this one's really resonant for me right now. I think I've mentioned to you before, got a couple teenagers and they're getting close to driving. Well, we're there. As of last month, my daughter turned 15 and is now in possession of her learner's permit. And it's a terrifying experience, as I'm sure any parents out there can attest to that are going through that or have gone through that. But I'm also finding it to be a really encouraging opportunity for me personally to do exactly what you just said, which is both role model the behaviors that I want my daughter to pay attention to and then enact while she's in the car, but also talk to her about the things that are important to me and should be important to her, like the fact that the choices she's making behind that wheel have a much broader impact than I think she realizes at the time. That's teenagers generally, right? They're kind of thinking about the thing that's in front of them or the text that just came through and not what this means longer term. So it's important for us to be talking about that. I know I'm annoying the heck out of her right now, but I'm going to keep doing it. Continue to pound on the simple things like do not text, do not call, put on the do not disturb feature that exists on your cell phone before you get into the vehicle to avoid the temptation to pick it up and look at it. One that I had never really thought of, Fred, but until I had a daughter in driving school, speak up. If you're riding with someone else and you don't feel safe, say something, right? They probably need to hear that as they're behind the wheel. So don't sit by silently if you're not feeling safe. And then something that we already touched on before, but I'm much more actively talking about now. Click the safety belt. Every single ride, every single situation, every single person in that vehicle needs to be wearing a safety belt. And for teenagers, they like taking risks. For my daughter, she loves to golf, and the golf course for us is only a mile and a half up the road. There's this natural inclination to, hey, I don't need a safety belt. I'm just going a mile and a half. We have a real obligation and opportunities to parents to be really reinforcing and pounding home the simple things for our kids.
I see people, sometimes not young people, but mostly young people, walking down the street, holding a phone up that are taking selfies or going live online as they're walking. And I'm sure this is taking place while many are driving too.
Fred, it's a great point. It's something I'm trying to be actively cognizant of as well when I'm driving and I have my daughter beside me. Just a reminder that, hey, the phone can wait. We're in the car together. Why don't we engage with each other instead of engaging with the phone? An important thing to reiterate. And I think your point about pedestrians is really important as well. I think that leads to some of the results we see in the 100 deadliest days. It's not just the behaviors of the driver of the vehicle, it's the behaviors of those around us and the need for our drivers, those of us that are operating the vehicle, to be even more in tune with what's going on around us. And I think we all get the point. If we're doing this, it becomes increasingly hard to see what's going on out here.
Right. And of course, we're not trying to take the fun out of summer. In fact, we're trying to preserve it, I suppose.
That's exactly it. I guess I'll leave you with a couple words of wisdom here, Fred, that we've been talking about here internally. I think is important for all parents or the network of support for teenagers to be thinking and talking about. One, it starts at home. It starts with us. It starts with the adults. We know that we're not perfect drivers. We know that 61% of people respond to surveys that they're better than most drivers, and yet almost 60% of those same people say they use their cell phone in the car. So I think we as adults have a real obligation to role model better driving behaviors and be active about that in the car. As you're trying to be better about doing things like putting on your own seatbelt or putting your phone on Do Not Disturb, show that to your children. Show that to other passengers that that's something you're committed to doing. And then lastly, and I know this can be hard with teenagers, with a teenage daughter, some days it feels like she never wants to talk to us again. And so the notion of talking to and providing advice can feel challenging at times. But let's be real. Our kids have been watching us behind the wheel since they were old enough to sit in a car seat and look forward and pay attention to what we're doing. They may not want to vocalize it, but they're still doing that. And so it's really, really important for us to be talking to our teenage drivers in ways that may feel awkward at first, but will become more natural about our own driving behaviors, what we're noticing about them as we're sitting in the passenger seat, and anchoring it in why it matters. Why do I care that you put your seatbelt on? Because I care deeply about you and what your life entails past this moment. And I think resonating with our kids to help them understand why we care so much about them helps them bridge that divide and understanding like, yeah, I'd really like to be on my phone, but I know my dad loves me and wants me safe. So maybe I'll put that away for now.
Terrific. For more info, is there a place people can go?
Thanks for asking, Fred. Yeah, as always, go out to statefarm.com. We have a safe driving page where you can learn a lot more about the perils of the 100 deadliest days. And there's also a guide out there for parents and teens at generationdistractionfree.org.
Terrific. John Wade, thanks for spending time with us.
Fred, appreciate your time as always.
The Haven 10,000 lantern is a smartly designed, beautiful solar light that you will love indoors or out. It is waterproof with up to 1200 lumens of brightness, that's a lot of light, and the base becomes a flashlight at the push of a button. The power comes from a built-in lithium-ion battery recharged by the sun, the solar panel is built in, or USB-C. The battery can even recharge your phone. Did we mention how durable it is, how it folds down and can run for up to 120 hours on a charge? But the real power of the Haven Lantern comes from the people behind it and their mission to provide this quality lighting to those in the world who need it most, including in disaster emergencies. Your purchase helps to fund those efforts, and if you use the code Techstination20, you'll get it at a 20% discount. That's Techstination20 at havenlantern.com. Create your haven.